Alright, once again I'm filming at night, so I'll just have some Nintendo playing instead of, I don't think this one even has a demo, although it's apropos to our subject matter. So we had a question from Morning Shadow X, once again about, why is it that the Hasidic community feels that they're being persecuted. Now it's not only the Hasidic community, it's the wider Orthodox Jewish community and actually the wider religious community of all the different religions, Catholic, Muslim, Protestant, all different religions are uniting now against this overreach of power by New York State into the private affairs of a very small minority community. And as we discussed, this is really, in a sense, it's a form of imperialism, attacking really the freedom of religion and the freedom of association, which are fundamental American freedoms. Whereas there is no fundamental right to an education and so forth in America. That being said, I want to discuss someone who, if anyone would ask me who my Rebbe is, I guess I would have to say it's the Kalover Rebbe from Williamsburg. Not that I follow all of his minhagim or anything, although certain things I do, but I have a lot of respect for him, and he's the first Hasidic Rebbe I ever met in my life, and I've known him, for a long time, and so, this is, my translation of something that he sent out recently, and I wasn't, I translate his Divrei Torah every week, and so he sent out a letter for Hanukkah, which he discussed the attacks that are happening now against the yeshivas, and he compared it to what was happening historically during the era of the Maccabees, the Hasmoneans, and the Hellenists that we commemorate during Hanukkah. And he said as follows, he said, it's very well known, the legend, it's probably not historically true, but it's a very popular legend that the Greeks, or they weren't actually Greeks, they were Seleucids who adopted the Hellenistic culture, and mostly it was a civil war between Orthodox Jews and Hellenized ex-Jews, really, Jews who wanted to get rid of Judaism and worship the Greek gods, and give up our religion, adopt a different religion, and not only that, but force the religious Jews to stop being religious, and fought a war and sought to defile our temple, sacrificed pigs in the temple, basically total defilement of everything holy in the Jewish faith. And there's, we know we play dreidel during Hanukkah, and the famous story goes is that while, the Jews would go hide in caves and study Torah and teach their children, and when the Hellenist authorities would come to inspect and see what was going on, they quickly put away their books, whatever it was. They probably didn't have too many books. because it was an oral tradition at the time mostly. But they would just take out a dreidel and play a game, and the authorities would leave them alone. Now the claim was, as it is today, this we're doing to help you make a living. How are you going to support yourself just learning Torah all day? You need to study secular studies so you can learn how to make a living. But the thing is that they didn't care, though, that they were playing dreidel, which is a game of chance. Takes no skill. It's not like it takes no physical effort, really, or very minimal physical effort. So it's not like they were building up their muscles. It wasn't like phys ed. It wasn't some intellectual pursuit. It was merely a game of chance that served no purpose. And if that's the case, so it shows but the Greeks were fine with that just as long as we weren't learning Torah. The Hellenists were fine with that as long as we weren't learning Torah. And that shows that it wasn't about caring about these Jews who were not learning Torah, who are not learning a trade or whatever. It was just about preventing us from learning our religion. That was the issue. And I can testify myself. I went to public school. You're not allowed to talk about religion in public school except in a historical context. You're not allowed to pray in public school, all that stuff. That's a big no-no. But I cannot tell you how many hours we wasted watching. This was in the 90s. They showed us the Mighty Ducks and the Lion King and, just movie after movie after movie with no purpose. Now, all right, they would show us like Amadeus, so at least, they were learning history about Mozart. So that even if it's not a practical study, but it's at least educational. But there's nothing educational about Cool Runnings and the Mighty Ducks and the Lion King and things like that. But this is what they would put on for us. When I was a kid in school, in public school. And it wasn't even presented in any kind of an intellectual or educational way. It was just filling up time. So, with that being said, it's pretty much the same thing. Who are the public schools to be bossing us around about what goes on in our yeshivas when they just waste time constantly with all kinds of stuff? It goes deeper than that, though, because that's rather benign compared to what the Rebbe continued to say is that to write, you should know that he's writing this. He has Lou Gehrig's disease, so like Stephen Hawking, Badal Chaim Tovim and Lahavdil to our Rebbe, his eye movements would register on a machine, and that's how he communicates. But he writes these brilliant writings every day. And he said, so why are they fighting against the yeshivas? The sages say, the Talmud says that why is Mount Sinai called Mount Sinai if its real name was Horeb? Sinai, even though it's spelled differently in Hebrew, Samech and a sin, it sounds like the Hebrew word for hatred, Sina. And so the Talmud says it's called Sinai because from their Sina, hatred came upon the nations of the world, which we understand that to be that the essence of what is colloquially called anti-Semitism, although I don't like that term, of Jew hatred, of Judeophobia, is a jealousy that we got the Word of God. Freud spoke about this. He said that the anti-Semite does not hate the Jew because he killed Jesus, but because he brought Jesus. Meaning, and I don't mean pious Christians don't hate Jews, but the anti-Semites, they don't want this Jewish guy up on the cross telling them, you better be a good little boy. He sees you when you're sleeping and he knows when you're awake. They don't like that type of stuff, and it bothers them. The wicked people. I don't mean righteous good Christians, but I mean the wicked people. And that's what even Hitler himself, he said that he was upset at, he was opposed to Christianity because it was a Jewish idea, and he wanted to divest Christianity of its Jewish roots, and he called that positive Christianity, which was nothing positive about it in the way we say positive. What it means positive was that, like, it's not, there's nothing, it's like how we say that the Constitution is a negative document, meaning it doesn't talk about what powers the government has, it rather the powers the government doesn't have. And it's that type, and the left would like to see a positive Constitution. That's what, and Hitler was essentially a leftist and a New Age, neo-pagan. He encouraged, he said, let's forget about this Jewish religion of Christianity, and let's go back and worship the ancient Norse gods. And there are movements like that, the Odinists, today. And that's what I've been saying, that the goal of the left in attacking the Hasidic community is really an attack on all people who value religious freedom, whether you're religious or not. Because if the government can take away the religious freedom from one group, they could take away the religious freedom from all the groups. And the real goal of the left is to shut down your churches and your mosques and your temples as much as they want to shut down our synagogues. And they know that the key to that is the children. And and Hitler said that as well. If you, and Haman and all of the enemies throughout history have said, if you take the children away from the Torah, then there won't be another generation of Judaism. But why are they jealous? Because they see that religion, and it's not really of all religious people. It's not particularly a Jewish issue. They want to shut down the Christian schools and the madrasas and so forth. Why? Because they're jealous that the kids who go to religious schools, whatever religion, are better behaved and everything better than the kids who go to public schools. And they have more, the Rebbe pointed out, they have more focus, they have a higher attention span. And that's his experience, having traveled throughout the world and spoken to kids, and adults from, all around the world. And he says he sees the public school kids versus the yeshiva kids. You can't, it's night and day. And so instead of making the public school kids better, they want to bring us down to lowest common denominator out of their jealousy for us. There's a midrash like that says, why did the Sodomites want to rape any stranger who came through? And the reason was because they did not want them to feel any superiority, that they were free of sin. And so therefore, the degradation was not only physical and sexual, but it was spiritual. And so they wanted everyone to be on that lowest common denominator. Anyone who even walked into the city limits of Sodom had to be on that lowest common denominator, so they shouldn't feel any superiority to the residents of Sodom. And essentially that's what we see here. Again, they don't want to have, I remember Michael Savage said, I'm not a fan of Michael Savage, but he said he went to a Lubavitch Shabbaton or something, and he said he doesn't remember the last time he was in the same room with so many, I'll use the word he said, with so many virgins. Meaning to say, and you can see there's purity in our kids. That now, not everybody is perfect. Of course, there's problems, but it's much less than in the secular world, where it's something is strange if you didn't indulge, before you're married and so forth. Not to say it's perfect. We do have these problems in our communities as well, but it's much less, and there's much more. Even those who might be engaged in something like that have some shame about it. In the secular world, there's no shame. There's no, there's no ideal that I should have waited. There's no, there's no regret. There's no remorse. It's just total hedonism. And that's the secular world that we live in. At least in our world, when if we commit a sin, we recognize it's a sin, and it's something we have to repent for. We don't just say, "Oh, it's okay, we can do whatever we want." But in their world, it's like they want to proselytize us into sin. And so this is really a missionary attack by the secular, some people call them the secular jihadists, or the secular missionaries they can't stand the fact that there are people who have other views than their own. And so essentially, that's what this attack is about, in the opinion of the Kalover Rebbe, that there's jealousy, even if they are not aware that they're jealous, but they just, it's something in their soul that's saying, I'm jealous, I want what these people have. I mean, my wife told me once, one of her friends once said to her, a friend of hers who's not Jewish, she said, I don't get to have Shabbos the way you get to have Shabbos, and as if to say, I wish I had Shabbos, and so to all the other things that, and I'm not saying that's what everybody else has to do. I'm not here pushing my religion on other people. I don't care if you're Catholic or Muslim or Protestant, Mormon, Hindu, Buddhist, atheist. All I care about is you do your thing and I do my thing. I'll leave you alone, you leave us alone. We can dialogue, we can share, but we don't have to, especially not the government shouldn't be forcing, and that being said, I said openly, it's none of my business even if a Jew becomes an apostate. All I want to say is that they're not Jews anymore. Once they become apostates, and it's not my business. Live and let live. That's what the Christians say, right? I think that's why, this is going to be a little controversial, but as an American, I believe that Christmas is an American holiday. It is a national holiday in America, precisely because America was founded by Christians. Even though historically those Christians usually didn't celebrate Christmas in those days. But now, most Christians in America do, some don't. But the idea to me as an American who's not a Christian, is that if this was not a Christian country, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we have as Jews or as Muslims or as Buddhists to live here. And now you're going to say, but look at all these other Christian countries in the past that didn't say like that. The Christian today will say, well, they weren't being very Christian. You know, and they feel bad about those things that happened in the past, and they disavow that stuff. But this idea, live and let live, that's a Christian idea, and that's how we're here in America as Jews, and with all due respect, and I have a lot of respect for my Muslim neighbors. And theologically, we have more in common with the Muslims than we have with the Christians. But the fact of the matter is, in a Muslim country, it's not usually like that. And even if it is, non-Muslims are some kind of second-class citizen, they're a dhimmi. I still say better a living dhimmi than a dead soldier. I'm not, dhimmitude, it's good for what it's good for. And the same thing. In Israel, that calls itself a Jewish country, it isn't. It could be a Jewish country and not a Jewish state. I guess it's a Jewish country. I don't believe it's a Jewish state. I don't believe there should be such a thing as a Jewish state. Just like America's not a Christian state, it's a Christian country. It's a little different, meaning that the government isn't Christian, the people are Christian, for the most part. And so too, other people are welcome to live here because of that. And the Israeli government claims to be Jewish, but there's really no such thing. We're supposed to wait for the Messiah, the Jewish idea of the Messiah, and we're not supposed to have a state right now. But the fact is, a lot of Jewish people live there, or whatever. I feel that Israel would benefit by emulating America. Again, all that being said, that's what I've got to say here. But, if we're in a Muslim country, some of the Muslim countries, they do respect Jews and Judaism. It's not, totally, but it's not the way it is in America, that being said, I don't agree with the way things are in Germany, as far as they don't really have religious freedom in the way that we have in America. They have government-run, government-subsidized religion. It's a little different. It's not a libertarian form of religion. It's a government-based religion, which some people will say, well, that keeps the religion alive. That keeps the religion authentic. Whereas my approach is, I let go and I let God. And in a free market, which we have in America, a spiritual free market, religion can exist in with much less corruption than there is in Europe, because people are free to say, all right, I'm leaving, I'm going to this other church, or I'm going to go to the mosque now, I'm going to go to the synagogue now. Now, the mosque, the synagogue, the church might not accept you, and then you could go and open your own church or synagogue or mosque or whatever it is. That's how it is in America. And all right, does that mean there are charlatans and this and that? Well, how do you define a charlatan? How do you, religious freedom in America is a pretty major absolute thing, meaning you could get ordained online, and it's my freedom to say I don't recognize your ordination for my church or synagogue or whatever, but the government can't say, well, if we let these ministers sign marriage licenses, we usually can't let these, with certain exceptions. I mean, there are ways to say, well, you need to, Pennsylvania, I've made videos about Pennsylvania's laws, and they're quite interesting, and it makes sense, and the thing is that there are other ways to get married in Pennsylvania. So you can get a self-uniting license. But there are the typical internet minister generally is not legal in Pennsylvania. Not even Jared Kushner, or Kathy Siegel, or Kathy Griffin. But with all that being said, but it is legal in other states. New York City has their own thing. Every municipality. That's also part of federalism, that the states and But what it was a Supreme Court case about Universal Life Church is that they can ordain ministers and So, well, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. But just the same, just because they can ordain ministers doesn't mean that every church is going to hire a minister from there. Just the same, and that's also part of religious freedom. I can't sue a synagogue for not giving me an interview for a job, because the synagogue has the freedom to say, well, we don't want this type of rabbi, and that's fine too. As much as it's hurtful, I would love. I was very hurt when, Allentown, I sent them my resume and they turned me down. They wouldn't even tell me why, But I'm leaving that up to God. I'll be wherever God wants me to be. I'm very thankful to be where I am right now as far as my regular full-time job. I would like a part-time synagogue to be senior rabbi in, even if it's once or twice a month, somewhere within a reasonable distance to commute. I'd rather not go into the city though, but somewhere in Jersey or PA or upstate New York would be nice. So that's just how it is. Well, and that being said, if any synagogue would like to have me as a guest speaker for Shabbos, we could probably organize something like that. You could contact me. I would theoretically go speak at a church. Rabbi Lappin goes speaks at churches too. I'm okay with that. So I don't know if anyone wants me to, and especially if there's like a Pesach program, that would be awesome if I could get a free Pesach somewhere at a hotel, or something else like that, or a shul that needs the rabbi to cover for Pesach and they have a place to stay or something. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.